that the public diplomacy budget in Pakistan was about under $2 million, but the public diplomacy plan in France was multiple times that. Well, we had a lot more troubles in Pakistan than we did in France. And so we went and we fought hard to get more funding for the organizations and the part of the government that need it. So that kind of briefly some ideas on how you can make your communications plans more effective. But I'd really like to hear from you and see what your ideas are and see if I could answer some questions about what we can all do to make our countries and our personal communications plan more effective. So with that, I'd like to open it up because I've been up since 7 a.m. doing meetings all day long. I'm tired. Please give me your feedback and your ideas of what we can do together to make our communications more effective. Any questions? Yes, right there. Hi. Good evening.
Okay, so I will ask my question in English. So the first one is, should we communicate all reforms that we're doing in Ukraine to our population or not? What do you think? Like all the reforms, good or bad? Reforms, yeah, should be communicated with population. What do you think about that?
I think so. What type of reforms?
Well, for example, our cabinet of ministers just raised the prices for gas up to 23.5% for population, and they did it on Friday night, just like very surprisingly.
So
and should that be communicated or not?
When somebody does a communications announcement on Friday night, what does it usually mean?
I know what that.
You're trying to hide it, right? Yes. It's Friday afternoon is like a time to dump bad news. So that's what they were trying to do, was get the bad news out on a Friday afternoon. So hopefully on Monday morning you've forgotten about it.
Yeah.
So in that type of a case, it's, you know, the better thing to do for a government actor would be to take the issue on head on, and to talk about, okay, here's why the gas prices are going up, natural gas prices, right? Here's the exact honest truth of why gas prices are increasing. And here's the challenge that we have, and here's what we're doing to fix the fact that the gas prices are going up. What is the government doing? What's the private sector doing? Are we going to try and find new and different sources of gas? Are we going to try and find ways to help people that can't afford a gas increase of 23%? So you take it head on, because you're going to have more trust from your population if you don't try and hide it on a Friday afternoon when you think everybody's turned off for the weekend and they're heading to they're heading on vacation, or they're turning off their television, and that's a more responsible way. Unfortunately, government officials, they tend to try and put it aside and hope that you'll forget about it by the time you get back to work on Monday. And that's kind of the reality of the way governments work sometimes. But if we keep the government officials honest and focused on what they should do, instead of when they're trying to put the information onto the back burner, that's the more effective we are. So talk about it. Talk about the reasons why there's been the changes in that type of environment.
Okay.
And be most effective.
And one more question. So if we will be using this example again, so the question is how much time they have to spend, like 1 week prior this news, or like months or 6 months? What the timeline should be?
For what type of?
For this reform, for this thing.
Reform?
Yeah. It's not a reform, it's just a thing that happened.
Yeah, so gas prices went up 25%, and the government should start focusing on it immediately. In fact, they should have headed it off before that happened, in an ideal situation.
As soon as possible, right?
Yeah. And I think it's those kitchen table issues that are the most important to the population. That if the government can foresee that problem, because we know a lot of times when we get to the fall, what happens? Gas prices tend to go up. So we can predict it from a calendar standpoint. It gets colder out, prices go up. So they should be focused on it right away. And so yeah, it should be a fast way to interact, to get the government focused, get the private sector focused.
Okay, so the best way is to talk, to explain, and to people, and yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like the population is not a child, right? It's
right.
Adults.
Right. We want to know. Don't we want to know why our government's doing the activities they're doing, and know about it right away rather than being caught off guard? Because we can't operate that way. If the prices go up 25% overnight, that's a huge problem for our population. So yeah, they should be focused on it. Right? What do you think? Yes?
Well, I think the same. I mean, I think.
Well, there's an election in March.
Yeah, I know. Any other questions? Because I have one more. Okay.
Well, you've got the mic, so go ahead. We'll get him next. Okay,
so could you please tell us something from your experience about crisis communications that you had? Something that concerns on a person image, I think. Have you ever had such experience? It would be just interesting to hear.
So I've worked on different issues on a person who's personally going through a crisis situation, and my best advice is get all your information out if you're in a crisis situation, because a lot of times we'll think, oh goodness, that information will never see the light of day. And in 2018, in the communication world we live in right now, there's very few secrets. So get your information out as quickly as you can. Get it out on your terms, and get it out on your timeline, and get it out with 100% of the facts. So the example is that I've used in the past is that recently Senator John McCain passed away in the U.S., unfortunately, a great United States senator, but he almost wasn't a great United States senator for very long. He was involved in the 80s in a scandal called the Keating 5 scandal, in which there were dubious things that happened to help a savings and loan owner in the state of Arizona. So what John McCain did was he did a news conference in Phoenix, Arizona. He went up to the podium and he answered every single question that every reporter had until the reporters had no more questions to ask. They started taking the microphones off the stand. They started going away. They went back to their news organizations. He gave a news conference for about 2 hours until every reporter's question was answered and there was nothing left to talk about. John McCain survived that, and he went on to become a United States Senator for several more terms, and probably one of the most decorated and honored members of the United States Senate from either political party. But he almost didn't survive that, because if he would have just let it fester and let it become more and more difficult, he probably wouldn't have survived. So it's that type of situation that one can do when they're in a crisis situation to stop it, because then anytime somebody asks a question about that situation, he could say, I answered every question I possibly could have for an hour plus until you people took your microphones off the stage and left because you got all the answers. That's one way. Thank you. Yes, sir.
How do you think, should a democracy country have a Ministry of Information Policy?
Tell me more. Yeah, tell me what the Ministry of Information Policy is.
In Ukraine, we have a Ministry of Information Policy of Ukraine.
Yeah.
And the question is, how do you think should be information in country regulated by a ministry?
So what type of information? Because I'm struggling here because I'm trying to figure out what Ukraine specifically has as far as...
For example, news.
So news. So regulating the news?
Like censorship organization.
So censorship? Yeah, I'm against that. So I think the free market is your best censorship. And in many cases that's going to be the strength and the power of your community is a well-informed, articulate, literate society figuring out what the regulations are. Once we start regulating speech, we're going on a tough path. But continue the discussion. What type of things are they regulating? Yes.
They don't quite regulate. I mean, well, they.
Please hold on.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We'll get the question. We'll get the.
Yeah, they don't quite regulate all the media, but they created their own TV channel and
Okay.
they do their own like articles and all that kind of stuff. But the reason why the thing was created is because they just wanted somehow to fight Russian propaganda. So that was their justification. We create this ministry just to fight Russian propaganda, and we just want to put money in this ministry. But, well, we don't quite understand what they're doing, and that's why when you ask us, it was like, it's hard to explain, because they don't communicate with us what they're doing there.
So the U.S. has public television, they have public radio.
Yes.
They have a White House press secretary, they have wide public affairs, public relations entities that work for the U.S. government, but they also have a free and open press that is not regulated to any degree. But so the goal of the public ministry is to get information out that will refute and fight back on Russian propaganda.
Yes. Well,
Okay.
Well, they don't have power just to tell media sources just to say don't put that or don't tell that. Wait, they don't do that, but they have their own channels. And, well, they just started this initiative, and it's quite difficult to understand why they decided to spend money this way. I mean, but this is my personal stuff.
Do you think that media has a bias?
I don't think so, because usually what they do is they show here is what Russians say, and this is not true, and here is the truth. So, I mean, Ukrainian truth, but still they're trying to be as objective as they can.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's just a question. Do you use data from social media, from research to communicate with your audience?
So analytics, information?
Analytics,
Yes.
yeah.
I think that's the good thing about data is that it allows us to find out who our audience is.
Yeah.
If our messages are working or not. Is it getting through?
What is...
How do people get their information? Where do they get it from? Is it reaching the audience that you want it to? Is it driving the emotional factors that are driving what you want to see as a positive activity or the actions that you want? So I think that whether it's a nonprofit group or it's a organization that's trying to reach consumers or government, that's the data is there. Utilize it.
Yeah, yes, I know, but what is the way you personally do it, and what is the way? Yeah. Do you use it in your research, or do you use it in your public speaking?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I think that's part of the data is put there for a reason, is to find out are you articulating your message to the right audiences? When you're getting your message to that audience, is it getting through? Is it making a difference? I think that if it's used for good, if it's used to better get your information out, certainly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But do you choose your audience? Do you choose your target audience? Do you choose your target group to communicate before you communicate?
One more time. I've been up since 7:45 and I've been outgoing. So
sorry.
Yeah.
There are several audiences. In data, you see that not all the people are the same. So you could choose some target audience. You could choose some people who will perceive your information faster, who will perceive your information, who will disseminate this information faster. So do you make this kind of research before you disseminate your information?
I think so, and I think that the answer is yes, and then I think that you continue to look at it throughout the process. So you can say, okay, well, but let's take a specific instance so that because we're not dealing with up here. What are you talking about? Consumer situation or a political campaign?
Any type of campaign. I think that any type of campaign, there are people who will perceive this information faster, or there are people who will be more interested in those kind of information, because information has a value, but not for all those people who will understand and who will listen to it. So that's why we should choose the value, because yes, we could use information for fighting, but the fighting should be not against something, but for something, right?
Right.
So when we use the information for fighting, we have a value, right? We have a value, but those value is not for everybody, just for some certain group. So I mean that data could be useful just to communicate and to just choose words, choose type, choose style, choose channels of information for certain group that will be disseminate those information for other people. Yes, people are a rather complex system. Do you use those theories of complex system in your job?
If you can afford to find the data, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that if you are a large company or organization and you can afford that data, or if you're running a national political or issue campaign, if not, you can get the data from your Facebook analytics. You can find out the data from Google Analytics and find out how many people are going to your website, how long are they spending on your website, what pages are they going to, how long people are spending on your videos, are they getting through the whole video? So that's the great thing about the technology right now, is we can get a lot of analytical data pretty easily for free without having to spend a lot of money on polling or focus groups or very, very expensive data collection. So I think we should be using that for our communication. And then look at our communication strategy as we're going through it, and halfway through or at the beginning of it, and find out what's working, what's not working. What do we need to do to reconfigure our strategy or our messaging? Yeah.
What is the main points of your strategy, in general, of your communication strategy? As a country.
Yeah.
So what is the main points of your communication strategy as a country?
As the United States?
Yeah, right.
I don't run the United States, so
no, I know.
Yeah,
but,
I wish I did.
But you could know.
2020.
Okay, thank you.
Let's make America great. No. So United States. The main points of America's communication strategy.
Yeah, right. Because we are talking about Ukraine as a country, so that's why we could learn from somebody to understand.
Okay. The main points of the United States communication strategy is very. We can't. There's not enough time to go through too many points. It's we try and do good. We don't always succeed. But we try and use the power of free markets and free people, and the essence and the verbiage of our Constitution. We try and fund efforts overseas through organizations such as the State Department and USAID that propagate, that forward those goals and those initiatives. We believe strongly in a free press, in free association, of freedom of religion, and it's those values and those ideas that move us forward. And we have a long history of a lot of good things and some challenging things. And what we want is allies and partners that we can work with actively and find ways for commonalities so that we can grow and prosper. That's America.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the most things you do right now is your innovation strategies. So you're talking about innovations a lot. So
Innovation,
yeah.
entrepreneurship, sharing and utilizing those technologies to help people. Sure, yeah. So that's yeah. Somebody over here had a question. Right there. There's the microphone. Hand it to the gentleman. Hello, sir.
The New York Times reported today that U.S. begins first cyber operation against Russia aimed at protecting elections, including November midterms. And my questions to you is next: is it really possible to protect the electoral process from external influence, and basically what U.S. government need to do? And moreover, I want to underline that it is a very important issue today in Ukraine, as the presidential and parliament election will take soon in our country. Thank you.
Right. Okay, so there's a New York Times story, and so what the United States did, according to the New York Times, is that they contacted a number of Russian influencers who are attempting to influence the United States election process leading up to our election next month, and essentially said, stop. We know who you are. We know what you're doing. It's not helpful. And it's likely that, kind of going through how this process works, it's likely that the United States found out all the intelligence information they could on these bots or these trolls, as they're called, and after they sucked out the intelligence, then it's like, okay, now we're gonna go after you individually. And kind of let everybody know who's trying to influence our election, especially the Russian interferers, so that we can send them a message that to stop it. It's not working. Now it's more of a tactical response, because once you stop one group, then they just it's like whack-a-mole. You at the carnival. Do we have that here? Once you hit a couple down, then they come up somewhere else. So it's an ongoing process, but I think what the United States is attempting to do is let the interferers know that we're keeping an eye on them, maybe more than we did in 2016, and that we're going to focus on them and as much as possible, and to protect our election processes. And I think that there's a renewed focus on that system, learning from 2016 in our elections, that we're using, and we're being more proactive in 2018. So, and I think that Ukraine could also implement some of those strategies as well. You know, find out who the trolls are, who's trying to interfere with your election process. Name them, correct what the fake information is, or the disinformation. And utilize the capabilities that we have as individuals, and being able to use the web applications and fight back. We're empowered to do so. That's the good thing about social media, is that just as the trolls have the ability to go after us, we can go after them as well and set the record straight. I think that's the way that a lot of this is going to be fixed, is through NGOs, nonprofits, everyday citizens saying, this is disinformation, it's wrong, I'm going to set it right, and I'm going to be a literate a citizen who points it out. Good question. Thank you, sir. We have a couple more? Yes, ma'am. Get the...
Я буду по-русски задавать вопрос. Я обратила внимание, когда шла на эту встречу, тем, что вы специалист и занимались вопросами Аль-Каиды. Можете конкретизировать, в чем заключалась ваша аналитика, когда вы занимались вопросами Аль-Каиды? И я без сомнения уверена, что процесс отслеживания информации о процессах, связанных с исламом в Украине, ведется американской стороной. На какие источники вы опираетесь в Украине? Как вы строите работу? Потому что если наша политика сейчас нацелена как бы на украинские имена, то существует как бы такая зона под шум политических баталий российско-украинских, как бы продвигать интересы экстремизма, терроризма исламского, не происламского, а который прикрывается как бы именем ислама. Спасибо большое.
All right, thank you. So my work on terrorists involved working on getting information out about what Al-Qaeda was doing to target innocent Muslims, innocent children, and other people in places like Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan. And what I did was set up a communication cell that found the information of when Al-Qaeda and their terrorist affiliates maimed, tortured, or killed innocent Muslims in their home countries and shine a light on that. So I would have reporters go and interview the victims firsthand to tell their stories. And the goal was to change the behavior of the terrorists so that instead of terrorizing innocent people, we would set them back so that they would change their behavior, and eventually we could bring back the land to the citizens that were there originally from Iraq and Afghanistan, and so that was our main goal on Al-Qaeda, was to point out the negativity within their actions in 2007 and 8. After that, the Al-Qaeda receded for some time, and then it came back again as a more powerful entity with ISIL or ISIS. So it's a continued battle and a continued vigilance that we have to have as a society to make sure that we're protected. And so I'm not familiar with the specifics of the situation in Ukraine, but it's something to remain vigilant about. One more question? Two more, okay.
I have a question about your experience. Could you share with us your best strategic communication, which you are proud for? Maybe you awarded for, and what is the reason why you get it? Okay. And also, quite interested, maybe you have failed.
What's that? Where I failed?
Yeah.
Well, we could be here all night.
No. Yeah. But because always interesting to know about success, and also it's interesting to understand which strategy could be failed and what we need to do and pay attention for.
Okay.
Thanks. And also one more question, but it's
Oh,
the
goodness,
personal.
that's two,
No,
three.
but it's the. I am pretty sure that the most important things in any communication is the person who do this communication. And what is the profile, the best person who could do strategic communication for your point of view?
Okay, let's do the first one first. We're all communicators. So we all have the capability to be a really good communicator. We just need to focus and to put the attention to it and learn. And to go back to the first two questions, learn from your successes and figure out what you did well. And they don't have to be big successes either, but you know that you've succeeded. So I was working on animal welfare issues, and I found out about a young man who was in Afghanistan and was deeply hurt in war. So he had PTS and traumatic brain injury. He's going through some difficult situations. And when he was in Afghanistan, he was the guy that would try and find the IEDs and the bombs. And he had a dog who was his battle buddy, his companion when he was in Afghanistan. His name is Brent Gromit, and his dog, his battle buddy canine was Maddie. And when Brett left the war zone, his dog Maddie was still in the war zone, and they were separated. And he was desperately trying to find Maddie, his war dog. His war dog was brought back from war and was adopted out to a family in, we didn't know where, but we knew it was somewhere from Florida to North Carolina. So it was my communication strategy that I wanted to find Brett Gromit, the war veteran, his dog, Maddie. And I started a national public relations and public affairs campaign where I told Brent Gromit's story. I told it on radio, I told it in newspapers, I had national television stories done about Brett Gromit and his war dog Maddie. We need to find Maddie. About 2 weeks later, an individual came forward and said, well, we adopted Maddie, but we want to return him back to his original handler, Brent Gromit. And about 3 days after that, we reunited the two of them in a very emotional situation. So it was that all we did was bring one war veteran together with his canine, but that has huge significance in my life and what I was able to do. That we then set up a law within the United States. It's called Maddie's Law, and that is that when a dog comes back from a war zone, the first right of adoption goes to the veteran who they were with in that war zone, and not just adopted out into regular society. So it's things like that I cherish. Mistakes. Boy, I tried to reform America's pension system, the Social Security system, and that is what's called the third rail of politics, because it's electrified, and if you touch it, psh, and we weren't successful in that endeavor, and I try and look back at that and say why, and part of it is timing. In the news at that point, it was Iraq and Afghanistan. It was war. Nobody wanted the instability of going through and reforming the retirement system. That was about 2005 when we tried to do that. 2008 happened with the financial collapse, so it was not going to happen. So what I always try and do is, okay, look at what you did well, but analyze what you did poorly, and use that as a learning mechanism and a teaching mechanism for your team and yourself, so that you hopefully don't make those mistakes again, and you learn from them. We've got one more question. You, ma'am? Yes? Oh, and then back there. Yeah, but let's do this one here first. Okay. She was first. Am I going to need these things? There you go.
Half and half.
Okay.
Good evening. It's very interesting for me personally. Is that how do you know some tips for successful president speech, if you have this experience, and how can we correlate it with how to be successful in our personal speech in front of a large audience, and how to be successful in this situation? How to what is the structure or some tips of this such speeches in front of large audience?
So a presidential speech,
about a
president,
presidential speech, and how can I use it in private life? This your experience.
Okay, very, very good question. So, one of the things, and this was President Ronald Reagan that started the process, is at the State of the Union address, which is the annual address that a United States president gives to the entire nation in the U.S. House of Representatives, and Ronald Reagan started the process of having real people sitting up in the First Lady's area, of Congress, and what you've seen since then is a president will talk about their stories. He'll say, here is officer such and such. Here is a military veteran. Here's where this honorable person helped save another American's life, and kind of tell America's story through its people. And so that's one way that presidents have been very effective in communicating. Is sometimes, and especially some presidents, are not the most articulate, so they've got to find other ways to tell the stories. The big thing is connecting with your audience and doing the research on who your audience is. And if you can find out what they're looking for and how you can communicate to them directly, you're going to have the most impact. So, President Bush was not the greatest orator in the world, but he knew how to communicate within his own way. And so the other thing is when we're all talking, is realize what our strong points are and what our weak points are, and use that to our advantage. So yeah, who here remembers a phrase from President John F. Kennedy? Ask not what your country can do for you, but with what you can do for your country. So get that one phrase. Work on that one phrase that's memorable. From President Reagan, what's the one phrase that everybody remembers? Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. So have that phrase just in that way that can connect connect efficiently with your audience. President Bush on the rubble of the World Trade Centers, and he stands up and he grabs the megaphone just after September 11th, and he says, "We hear you, and the people that brought down these towers will soon hear from us all." And it's kind of that kind of history-making type presidency statements. You can't always write them, right? We can't even predict when they're going to be the ones that we remember a generation later. But if we work to kind of craft that message in a way that will be resonating over time, we'll be talking about it here at the America House years later. So, one last question. Back of the room.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Please tell us, what do you think about situations when famous opinion leaders start to communicate political issues? For example, famous lifestyle blogger or musician or someone else from non-political sphere start to communicate issues like cybersecurity, for example, or taxes, or someone else. Thank you.
So it's like people that maybe they're in culture and sports and entertainment, and that's become kind of in America. In some instances, it's so over the top that we just quit listening, right? It's like, oh, who was it? Recently the singer, what's her name? The singer, help me out, came out in an Instagram and talked politics. Anybody? Nobody remembers? Okay, then it didn't resonate. Taylor Swift, yes. And I think it's great that people are involved, right? Isn't that the thing? I think we should inspire more of it. But I think part of it is that the more engaged our electorate is, the better off we're all going to be in the end. But to the same degree, it's that person's viewpoint isn't any more important than any of ours. We just have fewer Instagram followers. So yeah, let's listen to what people from entertainment and culture and music and sport have to say, but let's also focus on what we have to say individually and our power that we have. I may not have the number of Instagram followers that Taylor Swift has. Nobody here does. Maybe you do. Are you on Instagram? How many followers do you have? 200. Well, make your voice heard. You're empowered as well. So let's all use this time and use our voices in a way that's articulate and smart, so that we can make our voices heard on what we think about government. Because that's the way we're going to make government more effective. That's the way we're going to make our political rulers listen to us. And that's the way that we're going to make our democracy stronger. So everybody, Instagram later on your feelings, if you wish. If not, be quiet. But let's all take that as a charge to think about. So I want to thank each of you for being here tonight. I want to thank the America House for their hospitality. I want to thank everybody for coming out on this, what is it? What night is it? I've lost track. Is it Tuesday night? On this Tuesday night in the great city of Kyiv. I want to thank all the hospitality from the American Embassy and everybody here at the America House. Thank you very much. And appreciate it. Have a great night. Thank you very much.
Thank you.